our presentation since I like how that looks when people have been doing it. All right. Awesome, guys. As people are coming in, thank you for coming to Writer's Lunch today. We have a substitute Soul Reaper going from one topic to another. And happy today to be talking about Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks, two authors I really, really love and just want to put a focus on. So happy for that. I as well as next month, I will be having, sorry, next week, we'll be having the AMA for Tomeworks editors, and we'll be bringing our favorite Black authors. So, anyone you're interested in talking about, in telling other people about, we totally want to help that out as well and spread the word about different authors that are amazing that might not be as well known for sure.
Yeah, so we'll be
Start.
talking about people that we would like to highlight, and then also we'll talk about, as we are all white people, how we can actually help champion diverse authorship and fight against racism.
Heck yeah. And that's a lovely segue into two very strong authors of kind of the third wave of feminism. So today talking about Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks. And I kind of came to them reading them through philosophy. So very interesting to be like, oh, we're going to talk about the Panopticon with Foucault and older things and stuff like that, and then getting to who's making new philosophy now. I It was very incredible to see as Bell Hooks really had a resurgence in 2020, and since then, with the George Floyd protests, with things happening in a changing America, and how that philosophy really was there for the moment. It was very important to see. Going back to Audre Lorde, slightly of a different generation, but still so strong in reclaiming images. And now today we are looking at, the internet, the proliferation of images, videos, and now with AI, the faking of these things, and her thoughts on kind of how these need to be reclaimed, and these need to be brought to everyone, not just to white cis men in this case, who were writing the philosophy before. So my different perspective, and definitely a broadening of understanding of these kinds of things. So, love, it's complicated. We're here in February. We just had Valentine's Day last weekend, and these are both two authors who very much had complicated and different views on love than the straightforward romance story for sure, both in their philosophy and in their personal lives. So I want to look at these as kind of two biographies. I have a couple things at the end, but I want to encourage you to go out and read of these authors, Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks, their poetry, their philosophy, and how those kind of come together. So Audre Lorde, born in 1934, passed away in 1992. Lorde was an American writer, professor, philosopher, intersectional feminist, poet, and civil rights activist. This is a better list. She was a self-described Black, lesbian, feminist, socialist, mother, warrior, poet. And all of those things definitely apply. She definitely was very strong in her opinions and made them known, and made herself kind of inserted into this international scene, not just sticking around in America as James Baldwin did as well, and make sure to get out and see different perspectives on a lot of the things that affected her in her life. So Audre Lorde was born on February 18th, 1934 in New York City to Caribbean immigrants, Frederick Byron Lorde and Linda Gertrude. Her mother was Her father was born in 1898 in Barbados. Her mother was born in 1902 in Grenada. Lord's mother was a light-skinned Black woman who sometimes passed as Spanish for employment. Lord's father was darker than his wife's family liked, and they only allowed the couple to marry because of Byron's ambition and persistence. This new family settled in Harlem and Upper Manhattan after immigrating. Lorde was nearsighted to the point of being legally blind, but at the age of 4, she learned to read at the same time she learned to talk, with the help of a librarian at the 135th Street branch of the public library. Born Audrey with a Y, Geraldine Lorde, she chose to drop the Y from her first name while still a child, explaining that she was more interested in the artistic symmetry of the E ending in the two side-by-side names, Audre Lorde, than in spelling the name her parents had the way her parents had intended. It's very interesting. Both these authors chose their names and did things to it. No, Audre Lorde didn't modify hers nearly as much as Bell Hooks, but she did it for a very aesthetic reason, and Bell Hooks had a very different reason. Lord's relationship with her parents was difficult from a young age. They were often cold or emotionally distant. Their parents owned different properties around town, were kind of landlords in Harlem at the time, but very much were just always out of the house. So, in particular, Lord's relationship with her mother, who was deeply suspicious of people with darker skin than hers, which Lorde had, and the outside world in general, was characterized by tough love and strict adherence to family rules. Growing up Catholic, growing up in this time period for sure, in the 40s and the 30s, it's difficult for us today to think about how people who had different opinions about how to raise children. This was a time when, it really came into being. This is both in black and white families, of course, but the relationship of skin tone and how that creates a social hierarchy is not just between black and white, it is also intra-community as well, for sure. You can see this in how the integration of Italian Americans into being considered white didn't really happen until the 1950s and 60s. And in this case, it's speaking about Lorde and her very, very intimate relationship with her mother. In her own family, there was racism between her and her mother because of her darker skin than her mom. So as a child, Laura described herself as thinking in poetry. She memorized a great deal of it and would use it to communicate, to the extent that if asked how she was feeling, Audrey would reply by reciting a poem. That sounds autistic. It really does. Around the age of 12, she began writing her own poetry. She attended Hunter College High, a school for intellectually gifted students. While attending Hunter, Lorde published her first poem in 17 magazine, and this is after her school's literary journal rejected it for being inappropriate. Also in high school, Lorde participated in poetry workshops sponsored by the Harlem Writers Guild, but noted that she always felt like somewhat of an outcast from the guild. She felt she was not accepted because she was both crazy and queer, but they thought I would grow out of it at all. So older writers in Harlem and the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s is not terribly far away from the 1940s when she's going there, and late 1940s, and really meeting older writers in the community. And that tension between before and after kind of the first wave of feminism coming in the 50s and 60s, and then subsequent things, is very different from the very stylized, very structured, working within the system version of things that the Harlem Renaissance really had put forth. Lorde graduated from high school in 1951. 3 years later, she spent a pivotal year as a student at the National Autonomous University in Mexico. This is in Mexico City, which is absolutely a hotbed of communist and socialist thoughts. It was very interesting years ago to be in Mexico City and to go to, I really think it was called something like the Street of Papers, and to just see used bookstores lining the streets, and they were filled not only with books, but also with political pamphlets. And they just had them stacked up from just decades and decades of saving these things. And it all really was this philosophical, very surprising and interesting way to look at things, because they very much, even if they have kind of a calcified political system, have free speech and very much engage in conversations about both race, indigenous, and white Mexicans, but also in terms of class as well. And Audre really took this class things in stride as well. During this time, she confirmed her identity on personal and artistic levels as both a lesbian and a poet. In the time, it was not acceptable to do so, but you could definitely get away with it in small groups. And, moving to New York City had a thriving gay community in the 50s, absolutely. On her return to New York, Lorde attended Hunter College and graduated in the class of 59. She worked as a librarian, continued writing, and became an active participant in the gay culture of Greenwich Village. She was literally there when these riots happened. The Stonewall riots were around. She furthered her education at Columbia, earning a master's degree in library science in 1961. Afterwards, she worked as a public librarian in nearby Mount Vernon, New York. In 1962, Lorde married attorney Edwin Rollins, who was a white gay man. Audre had been living openly as a lesbian since college. However, due to LGBTQ discrimination, they both decided to remain closeted, very much a lavender marriage. Audre and Edwin maintained an open relationship, allowing each to pursue same sex relationships. She and Rollins divorced in 1970 after having two children, Elizabeth and Jonathan. So she raised her children, absolutely, in this time, and very much as a openly living lesbian woman, for sure. In 1968, Lorde published The First Cities, her first volume of poems. That same year, Lorde was writer in residence at Tougaloo College in Mississippi. Lorde's time at Tougaloo, like her year at the National University in Mexico, was a formative experience for her as an artist. She led workshops with her young Black undergraduate students, many of whom were eager to discuss the civil rights issues of the time. Through her interactions with her students, she reaffirmed her desire not only to live out her crazy and queer identity, but also to devote attention to the formal aspects of her craft as a poet. So, what can I say? In a Forrest Gump way, she was in Mexico during very much a formative time of this socialist movement. She was in Mississippi when the civil rights fight was absolutely going on, the fight to be able to vote and to have to get rid of segregation. While in Mississippi, she met Frances Clayton, a white lesbian professor of psychology, who became her romantic partner until 1989. They raised Lorde's children together and lived openly as a lesbian couple. Back in New York City, I will put that, like meeting in Mississippi is one thing, but she lived most of her life in New York. Nominated for a National Book Award for Poetry in 1974, Lorde's poetry collection, From a Land Where Other People Live, showed her personal struggles with identity and anger at social injustice, as well as what it means to be a Black woman, a mother, a friend, and a lover. Looking at all of these different identities and struggling to push and fight for rights for all of them at the same time is terribly interesting in this intersectionality in her work. 1974 also saw the release of New York Head Shop and Museum. That's another collection of poems, which gives a picture of Lorde's New York through the lenses of both the civil rights movement and her own restricted childhood, stricken with poverty and neglect, and, in Lorde's opinion, in need for political action. Cole, really another poetry collection released in 1976, brought Lorde's poetry to the mainstream for the first time. Lorde's poems became more open and personal as she grew older, and she became more confident in her sexuality. This is from looking at it 2025, 2026, where you can absolutely have different identities, sexual identities, and be fine with them on the internet, in personal life, and stuff like that. And thinking back more than 50 years, how different that was, absolutely. Moving forward in
Yeah,
1980,
there's a
please.
lot of backsliding we seem to be doing though on those fronts.
Oh, I
And
totally understand. There's a lot of fighting about it. There is absolutely a political movement to put people back in the closet for sure. But in terms of that, America is just one part of the world. I us as a country looking at things and thinking that this is everything. At this point in Lorde's life, she really tried to look past what the limits of the United States were, geographically as well as philosophically. So
I
to
did have
get,
a question because you pointed
please,
out like
yeah.
the fact that she spoke in poetry as possibly being autistic. Was there any other um elements of her life, or did she ever like have a diagnosis, or did that ever come up for her, even if it was later in life when, this was more common to be evaluated? Because I would presume as a child she was not.
I did not really find any evidence of that. That was absolutely I editorializing for sure. But the idea of I don't know what my emotions are. I'm just going to quote something else. I felt very strong to me in terms of that.
Neurodivergent.
I can't say it with any degree of it, that she was, nor that she looked for that, I looked for a diagnosis. In fact, I think it was the early 90s when it was even possible to be diagnosed, as that. But as we look at different historical figures and can note things about them, Thomas Edison, Mozart, stuff like that, and that they may have been neurodivergent, this is just another of those little things where it's like, well, maybe.
I was reading an article. I mean, it was an editorial and it was supposed to be humorous, but it was just last night, and it was kind of funny because it was like, when men have autism, they like transit engineering, which of course is reductive, but when women have autism, they like social justice and improving the legal system. So when
Uh,
he said that, I was like, it's topical.
oh, I
All
mean,
right, I will get out
the
of here.
sense of righting wrongs, of justice, very much in it, absolutely, and how it comes out in very different ways. Heck yeah. In that respect, Audre Lorde, looking for social justice, looking around the world, together with Barbara Smith and Cherry. I got a thing in the way of my screen. I founded Kitchen Table Women of Color Press, the first U.S. publisher for women of color. A year later, Lorde was among the founders of the Women's Coalition for St. Croix, an organization dedicated to assisting women who have survived sexual abuse and intimate partner violence. In the late 80s, she also established Sisterhood in support of sisters in South Africa to benefit Black women affected by apartheid and other injustices. So this is reaching to the Caribbean, this is reaching to Africa. And then in 1984, Lorde started a visiting professorship at Free University of Berlin. During her time in Germany, Lorde became an influential part of the then nascent Afro-German movement. Together with a group of Black women activists in Berlin, Audre Lorde coined the term Afro-German and in 1984, and consequently gave rise to a Black movement in the country. I The way to go, just like different continents, I from America, you can complain about what America is doing to other countries, and then from other countries, you can see the effects of what a unipolar world could really do. And Lord was very much involved in seeing what it did to other places in the world. She was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 1978 and underwent a mastectomy. 6 years later, she found out that breast cancer had metastasized in her liver. But after her first diagnosis in 1978, she wrote the Cancer Journals, which won the ALA Gay Caucus Book of the Year award in 1981. It is a heartbreaking work, but it is a journal. It's very interesting that related to autofiction of today, it is her as a poet, as someone who's a little detached from reality, writing about her life. Some things compute, some things are one to one with what's actually going on around her, and other parts are dreams. Other parts are flights of fancy. And it's a terribly interesting, very long I work for sure. So from 1991 until her death, she was the New York State Poet Laureate. While designated her as such, then Governor Mario Cuomo said of Lorde, her imagination is charged by a sharp sense of racial injustice and cruelty, of sexual prejudice. She cries out against it as the voice of indignant humanity. Audre Lorde is the voice of the eloquent outsider who speaks in a language that can reach and touch people everywhere. Lorde died of breast cancer at the age of 58 on November 17th, 1992, in St. Croix, where she had been living with her partner, Gloria Joseph. Her life was cut short by cancer for sure. It is kind of interesting that at this time, at this, like 1980, like very early 80s time, that's really when bell hooks career started taking off. Both of these figures are very influential in third wave feminism and releasing women from the idea of basically to regain their sexuality. So it is not our differences that divide us, it's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences, is a quote from Audre Lorde. And maybe I can ask, maybe someone, maybe Shannon would be interested in reading a little section that is the opener of the uses of the erotic.
Sure. There are many kinds of power, used and unused, acknowledged or otherwise. The erotic is a resource within each of us that lies in a deeply female and spiritual plane, firmly rooted in the power of our unexpressed or unrecognized feeling. In order to perpetrate itself, every oppression must corrupt or distort those various sources of power within the culture of the oppressed that can provide energy for change. For women, this has meant a suppression of the erotic as a considered source of power and information within our lives. We have been taught to suspect this resource, vilified, abused, and devalued within Western society. On the one hand, the superficially erotic has been encouraged as a sign of female inferiority. On the other hand, women have been made to suffer and to feel both contemptible and suspect by virtue of its existence. It is a short step from there to the false belief that only by the suppression of the erotic within our lives and consciousness can women be truly strong. But that strength is illusory, for it's fashioned within the context of male models of power. As women, we have come to distrust that power which rises from our deepest and non rational knowledge. We have been warned against it all our lives by the male world, which values this depth of feeling enough to keep women around in order to exercise it within the service of men, but which fears the same depth too much to examine the possibilities of it within themselves. So women are maintained at a distant slash inferior position to be psychically milked, much the same way ants maintain colonies of aphids to provide a life giving substance for their masters. But the erotic offers a well of replenishing and provocative force to the woman who does not fear its revelation, nor succumb to the belief that sensation is enough.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Heck yeah. This essay is very strong in kind of reclaiming bodily autonomy. And being very strong in thinking of the male gaze, the female gaze, and really repurposing what a lot of media centers on to say, like this is not yours. It is mine for sure. My but Shannon, if I can ask if you have any thoughts, my replies to that kind of thought and
I
that
actually have a
philosophy.
question. How old was she? I mean, what age was she when she wrote this?
I'm gonna say mid 30s. This was definitely in the 70s. I'm gonna say 76 or something. I've only ever read it in a collection of other things.
So I think a lot of feminism at that time, especially, embodied this, that the sense that sexuality is power, and I think that's still true to this day. But one of the things that I've noticed as I've hit middle age is that middle-aged women recognize this and try to scream this from the rooftop to the younger women that like the expectations put upon you and your sexuality are done so by men to keep you controlled. And if you took it over, essentially, if you recognize that the power you wield is not something for them to consume, but for you to use as a means of like controlling them before they control you, or ignoring them completely, letting your sexuality or your erotic nature exist fully for yourself and of your own will make you a stronger, happier person. I feel like we're still trying to get that through to women because this sense of you existing for the male gaze or you having to meet societal expectations of size, of demeanor, and all that, tremendous awfulness that's weighted on even little girls who are their teens. Um, I don't know that a lot has truly changed, unfortunately, across the larger scope of the world. But I love how she puts this, and I mean, I wasn't able to convey it in my rendition of it, but I can feel the rage behind this, and I appreciate it.
No, totally, absolutely. My in different works as well, Lord will go on in this kind of tone, in this kind of idea, embodying exactly how you were interpreting it. I Shannon, to rail against how black and brown bodies are maintained in an American system, as well as against class and the idea of the rich exploiting the poor. And so, really, in so many ways, it's grabbing that power back. I think that feminism has a lot to teach of humanity. In the idea of that kind of reclamation of like realizing that kind of power, like what you hold, is exceptionally important and something to be commended, but also that capitalism lies at the root of a lot of these issues. Her socialism really led her a lot to this. I and very different than the idea of a top-down system of communism, was more about letting the different groups, the small differences in people, be like, this is how we can combine together to fight back, as opposed to declaring that there must be one person above all else, or a hierarchy. Hierarchies are destructive for sure, basically.
Yeah,
Hey.
I definitely see her as somebody who's, I don't want to say canary in the coal mine. It's like she's, moving from one place to another, kind of knowing that the discord is going to be there, the discord is brewing, just based upon everywhere that she ended up. I would be really curious to know if this was intentional on her part, or if there was something that she just subconsciously recognized about the simmering that was about to boil, when she moved from place to place.
Yeah, and seeing different versions of it. A lot of her reflections on living in St. Croix, and other places, are of like a release of tension, of not having that in her mind all the time, partially because not having or having a much more solid family structure, extended family structure, village kind of in terms of people gathering together for the same aim of helping each other, instead of trying to individually, like try to get one up on others, for sure. Hey, so moving on to, as long as things want to work for me. We also have Bell Hooks, born 20 years later. So Bell Hooks, born in 1952, passed away in 2021. Bell Hooks was an American author, theorist, educator, and social critic, best known for her writings on race, feminism, and social class. Her work explored the intersections of race, capitalism, and gender, and their ability to produce and perpetuate systems of oppression and class domination, serving as foundational for the modern idea of intersectionality. I wouldn't say that bell hooks like specifically cited Audre Lorde, but really came afterwards, as this cultural miasma pushed forward, for sure. So in this case, Gloria Jean Watkins was born in 1952 to a working class African American family in Hopkinsville, a small segregated town in Kentucky. Watkins was one of 6 children born to Rosa Bell Ordam and Veotis Watkins. Her father worked as janitor, and her mother worked as a maid in the homes of white families. In her memoir, Bone Black: Memories of Girlhood, Watkins would write of her struggle to create self and identity while growing up in a rich, magical world of Southern Black culture that was sometimes paradisical and other times terrifying. Paradisical, relating to paradise, I would say. I'm guessing. Let's see. An avid reader, with poets Williams Wordsworth, Langston Hughes, Emily Barrett Browning, and Gwendolyn Brooks among her favorites. Watkins was educated in racially segregated public schools, later moving to an integrated school in the late 60s. This experience greatly influenced her perspective as an educator and inspired scholarship on educational practices, as seen in her book Teaching to Transgress. She graduated from Hopkinsville High before obtaining her BA in English from Stanford in 1973, her MA in English from the University of Wisconsin in 1976. In 1983, after several years of teaching and writing, Hooks completed her doctorate in English with a dissertation entitled Keeping a Hold on Life, Reading Toni Morrison's Fiction. During this time, living in Kentucky, moving to California, she grew an interest in beat poetry. And after an encounter with the poet and Buddhist Gary Snyder, Hooks was first introduced to Buddhism in her early college years. She describes herself as finding Buddhism as part of a personal journey in her youth, centered on seeking to recenter love and spirituality in her life and configure these concepts into her focus on activism and justice. After her initial exposures to Buddhism, Hooks incorporated it into her Christian upbringing, and this combined Christian Buddhist thought influenced her identity, activism, and writing for the remainder of her life. It is interesting to me to think about Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks, and coming from a very Christian, strict upbringing, Audre Lorde coming out and saying, "This is me," and very much reclaiming that identity with an edge to it. Meanwhile, slightly later, Bell Hooks, as she was born, Gloria Jean Watkins, kind of tries to turn the other cheek in a way, and to make that an even stronger statement, to say through love, this is how we beat this same system, this sexist, capitalist, exploitative system. I can be better defeated through love and self-love than to looking at it in terms of we must, I take it down, really light everything on fire, is Audre Lorde through and through. Hooks began her academic career in 1976 as an English professor, studying ethnic studies at the University of Southern California. During the 3 years there, Golemix, a Los Angeles publisher, released her first published work, a chapbook of poems titled And There We Wept in 1978, written under the name Bell Hooks. So, how did you go from Gloria to Bell? And lowercase in that respect as well. So she had adopted her maternal great-grandmother's name as her pen name because, as she later put it, her great-grandmother was known for a snappy and bold tongue, which she greatly admired. She also said that she put the name in lowercase letters to convey that what is most important is to focus upon in her works, not her personal qualities, the substance of books, not who she is. That very much ties to socialist and communist thoughts of earlier times as well, where it's like, it's about the collective. It's not about the individual. I'm going to, for one, take my name out of it, take my ego out of it. I am going to use my great-grandmother's name because she was a very outspoken woman, but also to say, this is the work of a whole community. This is the work of generations. I am here because of everyone that came before me. And that little nod in her name is terribly interesting to me. So, in the early 80s and 90s, Hooks taught at several post-secondary institutions, including University of California, Santa Cruz, San Fran State, Yale, Oberlin, and beginning in 94, as a distinguished professor of English at City College of New York. South End Press published her first major work, Ain't I a Woman? Black Women and Feminism, in 1981, though she had started writing it years earlier at the age of 19 while still an undergraduate. In the decades since its publication, the 80s, the 90s, and up till today, Ain't I a Woman has been recognized for its contribution to feminist thought, with Publishers Weekly 1992 naming it as one of the 20 most influential works of influential women's books in the last 20 years. Hooks became significant as a leftist and postmodern political thinker and cultural critic during this time, the 90s. She gave so many talks, and YouTube is full of so many talks that she gave. She published more than 30 books ranging in topics from Black men, patriarchy and masculinity, to self-help, and she engaged pedagogy to personal memoirs and sexuality. So this is where the philosophy, and the personal come together. All About Love, New Visions, published in 1999. And it thrust bell hooks into the greater public discourse. In 13 chapters that discuss aspects of love in modern society, Hooks provides the reader with reflections on her own journey of love, as well as analysis of society's teachings about love. All About Love was followed up by Salvation, Black People and Love, as well as Communion, the female search for love, to form a trilogy of memoir-tinged philosophy that has seen its influence range much further into than academia and feminist studies. Hooks also took on a range of cultural topics throughout the year, including We Real Cool, Black Men and Masculinity in 1994. In this book, Hooks delineates the ways in which racist and sexist attitudes developed in American culture, have criminalized and dehumanized Black men, and how these myths have harmed the Black community, including her belief that hip hop as a whole strongly reflects imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. I'm going to say as well that's very much about the gangster rap, the putting on of airs, essentially. In another way, in Appalachian Elegy, Bell Hooks focuses her eye on the experience of living and growing up in Appalachia, touching on such topics as the marginalization of its people and the environmental degradation it has suffered over the years. Hooks quietly elegizes a slow loss of identity while firmly rooted in a place that is no longer whole. I love this about Bell Hooks, that not only is she talking about and moving to, the West Coast, the East Coast, but going back to write about growing up in Kentucky and feeling very much an Appalachian sense of being. Appalachia is not white. Appalachia is white and Black, and it has both cultural histories going back for hundreds of years. The popularity of Hook's writings surged among the racial justice movement, ignited by the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in 2020, with her book All About Love entering the New York Times bestseller list over 20 years after its publication. Hooks was named to Time Magazine's 100 Women of the Year in 2020, where she was described as that rare rock star of a public intellectual who reaches wide by being accessible. On December 15th in 2021, Bell Hooks died from kidney failure at her home in Berea, Kentucky, at the age of 69. Cut short in a way, but lived about 20 years longer than Audre Lorde. And very much I got to see her works reach that huge audience in 2020. Absolutely. Another quote from Bell Hooks: "When we choose to love, we choose to move against fear, against alienation and separation. The choice to love is a choice to connect, to find ourselves in the other." Which feels very much like it is that quote as well, from Audre Lorde earlier, but it just puts a different angle on it. Shannon, I very much appreciate you reading an earlier one. Let's see right here in the chat. Carly, oh, yeah, absolutely. I was first introduced to Hooks at my undergrad course through approach to engaged pedagogy. So interesting to hear the juxtaposition in the pedagogical space to those that seem to be inspired by Lorde. Lovely, yay. Maybe maybe Randy. I don't know if you're in a spot. Would you be interested in reading? Hi,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing all right. How are y'all doing?
Good, good.
Okay.
Would you
Uh,
like to read this from the opening of All About Love?
sure.
Yay.
Before you
When
do, I
I
do
w
want to
Oh,
give us a
sorry.
chance to plug your events because
Yeah.
you're starting something very interesting with a very cool co-coordinator or sponsor, correct?
Yes, yes. And author reading and critique circle. We're meeting every first and third Tuesday. We're moving the location, but I think we're going to go to, I might mispronounce it, Bohemios.
Bohemios?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
down on in the southeast side of downtown, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we found out that our prior location closes an hour earlier than we thought.
Ah. Oh
And
my,
who are you?
toss it in the chat for sure. Absolutely.
I was
Will
going to
do.
say, who are you working with to get this endeavor off the ground, and who should we contact if we want to join your open critique group?
Mamiko Suzuki, and I'm working with her. And you can contact me. I'm on Randy the author, and message me.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for reading.
All right, thank you. When I was a child, it was clear to me that life was not worth living if we did not know love. I wish I could testify that I came to this awareness because of the love I felt in my life, but it was love's absence that let me know how much love mattered. I was my father's first daughter. At the moment of my birth, I was looked upon with loving kindness, cherished, and made to feel wanted on this earth and in my home. To this day, I cannot remember when that feeling of being loved left me. I just know that one day I was no longer precious. Those who had initially loved me well turned away. The absence of their recognition and regard pierced my heart and left me with a feeling of brokenheartedness so profound I was spellbound. Grief and sadness overwhelmed me. I did not know what I had done wrong, and nothing I tried made it right. No other connection healed the hurt of that first abandonment, that first banishment from love's paradise. For years, I lived my life suspended, trapped by the past, unable to move into the future. Like every wounded child, I just wanted to turn back time and be in that paradise again, in that moment of remembered rapture where I felt loved, where I felt a sense of belonging. We can never go back. I know that now. We can go forward. We can find the love in our hearts, but we can find the love our hearts long for, but not until we let go grief about the love we lost long ago when we were little and had no voice to speak the heart's longing. All the years of my life, I thought I was searching for love. I found, retrospectively, to be years where I was simply trying to recover what had been lost, to return to the first home, to get back the rapture of first love. I was not ready to love or be loved in the present. I was still mourning, clinging to the broken heart of girlhood, to broken connections. When that mourning ceased, I was able to love again.
Thank you so much. Heck yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my, I do love this and the idea of it, like being about family of origin and early things and stuff like that. Randy, do you have any responses to that thought of, like, okay, there's anger, but, like that grief and sadness, can be overturned?
Um, yes, and I think personally, I've found that self-love has been able to overturn grief and sadness, and that the first love I ever had in the innocence of childhood was the love for myself. And returning to that and finding myself has been able to allow me to love others and to grow as I've grown myself. So that's the first love I feel, not necessarily from my parents, but from my own self, and that sort of security in oneself if you're able to find it.
Yeah, and that idea of, like being from so early, no voice to speak, of that heart's
Yes.
longing. Absolutely. Hey,
Yes,
thank
the
you.
vocabulary we gain as we grow really helps explain that childhood. What was the word you used? Paradisical,
Yes, very
paradisicalness. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I stomp this and try and relate it very much, even though I'm talking about nonfiction authors, poets, and all that, to be like, no, 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 this is also about I this is also about being a fiction author for so much, absolutely. To be truly visionary, we have to root our imagination in our concrete reality while simultaneously imagining possibilities beyond that reality. That little bit from bell hooks feels so much to me to be like, okay, yes, creating these worlds, creating interesting things, it does very much start with a sense of self, with like learning about where you are, because whether you are consciously or unconsciously putting it on the page, you're putting yourself on the page every time. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming to a very impromptu one. Ian got a little ill, and I decided let's do it in an hour. So I screw it, we're doing it live. But Audre Lorde bell hooks right after I Valentine's Day and during February seem to be the two authors that I always want to celebrate, and I'm very happy to.
So since we have a few extra minutes, I'm gonna bothersomely pick your brain
Do it.
as a white man. How do you think we can take the experiences of these women and really help fight the patriarchy? Like, how do we destroy you, friend?
Yeah, yeah. I the idea of a hierarchy is not fun to me as well. Politically speaking, I'm definitely coming at this, from ideas of anarchism. It is really important to me to think about people can have their own identities and self-identify, and in that respect should always be respected for that. The subsequent thing to that as well being suffer the consequences of what's going on around you. Audre Lorde and bell hooks very much helped me realize, okay, I am inhabiting these systems whether I want to or not. And through that, let's say, I through that uncover the patriarchal systems that are out there, you have to actively work against them. Otherwise, you are complicit in their structure. The idea of capitalism and like just that hierarchy of, stepping on the person underneath you has to be actively pushed against, in so many aspects of your life before you're able to, what can I say? I agree, in all good conscience, with opposing viewpoints. So that was a philosophical answer.
Yeah, I mean, I actually love it, but I would love some concrete ways that we can, because both of these authors, both these poets, like you said, there was a resurgence of knowledge about them. So, in 2020, bell hooks had, a popular resurgence. Are there things that we can do to either honor their memory, or are there other authors who, have followed in their footsteps that we should be honoring who are still alive? Because that's an important, element of who we provide a platform to is, can they respond? Can they speak for themselves at this point in time?
One, go to black-owned bookstores. My Kindred Books, my Class Bookstore in Houston, off the top of my head. My and two, uh, buy things when you don't know who it is. If you flip it to the back of a book, like give a shot to an author who, like is in the store. That's great, but their work seems a little wacky. You might not be 100% like, I know this is the book for me, but try it out. To take those little steps to try to find other viewpoints that are out there, is great, and I've come across so much very interesting philosophy by reading like a metaphysics of crystals. It's interesting where you'll find ideas to grow and expand your viewpoint. By looking into people that are outside of the mainstream structure. That's part of it, and the other thing for sure is, read widely. Like you're never going to find everything you want in authors that you already know that you like. So reaching out and finding other authors, other viewpoints, is terribly interesting to well round yourself in that case. But um yeah, that's things that you can do as a writer for sure. Outside of that, in your daily life and stuff like that, getting out of the structure that is a monopoly. So, you are, looking at your streaming services, you're looking at what programs you're using. You're looking at how you get around the city, whether it is, driving or Ubering or whatever. Taking a walk, using public transportation, breaking down those systems that put barriers between human beings, and trying to exist in a space where there is very possibly every type of person. I realize as well in saying this, because I've said things like this before, that there is a difference between a guy saying this. Yeah, get on public transportation. Yeah, go out and take a walk at night. And the inherent difference that that has in a feminist perspective and to women, where it's not always possible to do so. So that is within the guardrails of your comfortability and your safety.
Well, thank you, Sean, for sharing so much, especially with really not having a lot of time to do this. You can tell that because you're able to do this on the fly, that you have studied these poets immensely, and that you have a lot of perspective that you've spent like just sitting and thinking about them. And I appreciate that. So I want to thank you for sharing some of your knowledge and your insight with us. Next week, we will be doing our AMA with the Tomeworks editors. We'll be talking about our some of our favorite Black authors for Black History Month, but also we'll be talking about things like how to champion people who don't look like you, since all of the Tomeworks writers happen to be white, and the right way and the wrong way to try to lift up authors, how to give platforms, how to make sure you don't decide when they can have a platform and not, because that is something that historically happens. And basically, we want to make sure that we are doing things ethically, and that we provide resources if those resources are being held back from people who have a lot to say and the creativity to share with the world. So we will soapbox. We'll have a lot of soapboxing. But as Sean said, if you have authors that you would like us to know about or that you would like to share to the world, bring those recommendations with you.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. Have a great day, y'all.